Hi students, Miss Walsh here. So today we are going to be getting an introduction to functions. You have already worked with some functions. Perhaps you've certainly seen linear functions before, and last year you also worked with quadratic functions, and functions really represent the world. It's not a hyperbole to say that. Most things can be modeled by a function. So a little bit of a new notation here. This f of x here, basically it means that it is the same as the y. So there's a certain input, an x value that goes in, and that gives us the output, the y value, or the f of x. It can be called f of x or h of x. These are just names for the functions that are defined in terms of all possible x values. Okay, this is an example of when you take a vitamin that after a while, that it leaves your body. Another quick example of a function is the total cases of the COVID-19 up to today being August 7th. And so that can also be modeled by a certain function. Okay, so functions, as we said, they describe relationships, okay? And they're a subset of relations, which is just a whole bunch of x and y points. So anything is a relation that has an x and a y. Not everything is a function, okay? A function is defined when it has a single y value for each input, okay? So you can't put in an x and get two possible y values. This is not a proper answer. And so that would not be defined as a function, okay? And so when we are looking at these three relations, let's see what a function is and what it's not. We can see here that if I were to give an input of 1, I would get two separate outputs. As soon as that happens, right away, we say that no, this is not a function, okay? And you can do something called a vertical line test. If you can draw a vertical line anywhere, and the vertical line goes through two or more points, then it's absolutely not a function, okay? As opposed to C, I'm just going to jump here, you're given it in a little bit of a different, it's presented differently. So here the representation was a graph. Here the representation is an equation, but you know what this is. This function is 3x, so it's a linear function. It would look like this, y-intercept of 0. And you can see here, no matter what the input would be, no matter what the x value is, we will always have only one y value, okay? Now the y's can repeat. You can get a y value, let's say if it was like this, you can put in an x and get this output, and you can put an x here and get the same output. This is not a problem. You can get the same output for different x values, but what you can't have is you can't have an x with two different y answers. So this right here is a function. There's no problem. It passes the vertical line test. It doesn't repeat. And so we say, yep, that's a function. This is called a mapping diagram, and this maps possible x values into y values. So we would have some sort of an equation where we would put an x in, and as you can see here, when we would put an x in of 1, we would get an answer of 1 and 2. So this on a graph, when x is 1, we would get an answer of 1 and an answer of 2. So it would fail this vertical line test. You can see you're getting two different answers, okay? So this would not be a function. It would just be a relation, okay? So that's a quick introduction to functions, and we're going to go to function notation in a second.